In a quiet suburban neighborhood, where perfectly trimmed lawns stretched as far as the eye could see, a 7-year-old girl named Annie lived with her father and her new stepmom. The change hadn't been easy for Annie since her mother's passing 2 years ago, but she tried her best to adjust to their new family dynamic. Annie's father, a hardworking construction supervisor, had married Rita 6 months ago. At first, everything seemed perfect. Rita would cook delicious meals, help Annie with her homework, and always greet them with a warm smile. But lately, Annie had noticed something strange about her stepmom's behavior, especially during their afternoon tea routine. It started one ordinary Tuesday afternoon when Annie came home from school. She found Rita in the kitchen, carefully preparing her father's favorite chamomile tea, something she had been doing religiously for the past month. Annie sat at the kitchen counter, swinging her legs back and forth, watching Rita's movements with curious eyes. Something felt different about the way Rita prepared the tea today. She was more secretive, more careful, constantly glancing over her shoulder. Annie's father would usually come home exhausted from work, and Rita would immediately hand him his tea, insisting he drink it while it was hot. Annie had noticed how her father would become unusually drowsy after drinking the tea, sometimes even missing dinner because he was too tired to eat. At first, she thought nothing of it. After all, construction work was tiring. But then she started noticing the pattern. That afternoon, while Rita was in the bathroom, Annie's curiosity got the better of her. She climbed onto the counter to reach the cabinet where Rita kept her special tea blend. Behind the regular tea boxes, she found a small bottle with a label she couldn't quite read. The liquid inside looked nothing like tea, and the warning symbols on the bottle made her stomach churn. Annie might have been young, but she wasn't naive. She remembered the stranger danger lessons from school, and how her teacher had talked about being aware of suspicious behavior, even from people you know. She also recalled the basic first aid course her class had taken, where they learned about harmful substances and what to do if someone was in danger. As she heard Rita's footsteps approaching, Annie quickly closed the cabinet and returned to her seat. Her heart was racing, but she tried to act normal. She watched as Rita prepared another cup of tea, this time adding something from a different bottle she kept in her apron pocket. Annie felt her hands trembling. She knew she had to do something before her dad came home. With trembling fingers, Annie reached for her father's old flip phone that he had given her for emergencies. She had never needed to use it before, but she remembered the 3 numbers her father had made her memorize: 911. As she heard her father's car pulling into the driveway, she knew she had to act fast. She quietly slipped into the downstairs bathroom, locked the door, and made the most important phone call of her young life. The gravity of the situation weighed heavily on her small shoulders as she whispered into the phone, explaining everything she had seen to the kind-voiced dispatcher. The dispatcher kept her calm, asking clear questions and assuring her that help was on the way. Annie could hear Rita greeting her father in the kitchen, the familiar clink of the teacup against the saucer echoing through the house. Time seemed to slow down as Annie waited in the bathroom, her heart pounding so loud she was sure everyone could hear it. She heard her father's voice, then Rita's insistent tone about the tea. Just as she heard Rita say, "Drink it while it's hot, dear," there was a loud knock at the front door. The events that followed happened in a blur. Police officers entered the house, there were raised voices, and Annie heard Rita shouting something about misunderstanding. When Annie finally emerged from the bathroom, she ran straight into her father's arms, tears streaming down her face. The police had already secured the tea and the mysterious bottles, and Rita was being led away in handcuffs. Part 1 ends with Annie safe in her father's embrace, as police officers and paramedics fill their usually quiet home. The truth about Rita's intentions would soon come to light, but for now, all that mattered was that Annie's quick thinking and bravery had potentially saved her father's life. The little girl who had lost her mother had refused to lose another parent, proving that sometimes the biggest heroes come in the smallest packages. The following days unfolded like scenes from a movie Annie had never wanted to be in. The family's modest home, once a haven of routine and relative peace, had become the center of an intense police investigation. Detective Chen, a gentle-faced woman with kind eyes, had taken special interest in the case, making sure Annie felt safe and heard throughout the process. The morning after Rita's arrest, Annie sat in a bright, colorful room at the local police station's Child Advocacy Center. Detective Chen had explained that this was a special place where brave children could tell their stories. As Annie clutched her favorite stuffed rabbit, a gift from her late mother, she recounted everything she had observed over the past months. The tea started after Daddy got his promotion, Annie explained, her small fingers fidgeting with her rabbit's ears. Rita said it would help him relax after long days at work. She described how her father would become increasingly drowsy, sometimes sleeping through entire weekends, missing Annie's soccer games and their traditional Sunday morning pancake breakfasts. Meanwhile, in another part of the station, Annie's father was grappling with the shocking revelation. The initial toxicology reports had confirmed Annie's suspicions. The tea had contained increasing doses of sleeping medication mixed with other concerning substances. The doctors explained that the prolonged exposure could have led to severe health complications or worse. The thought of what might have happened if his daughter hadn't intervened left him shaken to his core. The investigation revealed a disturbing pattern in Rita's past. Under different names, she had been involved in similar situations in 2 other states. Detective Chen discovered that Rita had researched life insurance policies extensively in the weeks leading up to her marriage to Annie's father. The evidence painted a clear picture of premeditation that sent chills down the spines of even the most seasoned investigators. The local community, tight-knit and supportive, rallied around Annie and her father. Mrs. Thompson, their elderly neighbor who had always treated Annie like a granddaughter, brought over home-cooked meals and offered to watch Annie while her father attended meetings with lawyers and investigators. Annie's teacher, Ms. Patel, worked with the school counselor to ensure Annie had extra support during this difficult time. One evening, as Annie and her father sat on their back porch swing, a spot that had become their special place for honest conversations, he struggled to find the right words to express his gratitude and regret. "How did you know something was wrong, sweetheart?" he asked, his voice thick with emotion. Annie looked up at the stars, just as her mother had taught her to do when she needed courage. "I remembered what Mom used to say about listening to the little voice inside," she replied softly. "And my teacher always tells us that if something doesn't feel right, we should tell a trusted grown-up." Her father pulled her close, amazed by his daughter's wisdom and strength. The support they received extended beyond their immediate community. Local news coverage of Annie's quick thinking sparked a conversation about child safety education and the importance of teaching children to trust their instincts. The story reached other families who had experienced similar situations, creating a network of support and awareness. Detective Chen made regular visits to check on Annie and her father, bringing updates about the case and, occasionally, ice cream. She had become more than just an investigator, she was a steady presence helping them navigate the aftermath of Rita's betrayal. During one visit, she shared some difficult news. Rita had been targeting other single parents in neighboring counties through online dating platforms. The revelation hit Annie's father hard. He spent sleepless nights wondering how he could have been so blind, but Detective Chen helped him understand that manipulators like Rita were skilled at gaining trust. "Your daughter's intuition and bravery stopped this cycle," she assured him. "She's prevented other families from going through the same ordeal." As weeks passed, Annie and her father began establishing new routines. They started cooking dinner together, something Rita had always insisted on doing alone. Annie would stand on a kitchen stool, carefully helping her father measure ingredients for simple recipes they found online. These moments, though small, helped them rebuild their sense of security and connection. The case against Rita was building strongly, but the legal process would take time. Annie's father struggled with guilt over exposing his daughter to such danger, but their family therapist, Dr. Rivera, helped him channel those feelings into positive changes. They worked on improving their communication, setting boundaries, and processing their emotions in healthy ways. 1 month after the incident, Annie's father received a call that would change their lives again. The detective working on cold cases in a neighboring state had connected Rita to the mysterious disappearance of another single parent 3 years ago. The evidence Annie had helped uncover had opened the door to solving multiple cases, potentially bringing closure to other families who had suffered similar traumas. As part 2 drew to a close, Annie and her father sat in their favorite ice cream parlor, sharing a sundae and making plans for the future. The little girl who had trusted her instincts enough to make that crucial 911 call was slowly returning to the joyful child she had been before. Her father watched her chatting about her upcoming school play, marveling at her resilience and thanking whatever guardian angel had blessed him with such an extraordinary daughter. The road ahead would not be easy, but they would face it together, stronger for having survived this ordeal. Annie's story had become more than just a tale of danger averted. It was a testament to the power of a child's intuition, the strength of community support, and the unbreakable bond between a father and daughter who had already weathered so much together. The courthouse loomed before Annie and her father on a crisp autumn morning, its stone steps leading up to heavy wooden doors that seemed to touch the clouds. Annie squeezed her father's hand tighter as they walked up those steps, her other hand clutching the comfort of her rabbit plushie. Today marked the beginning of Rita's trial, and despite everyone's efforts to shield her from the pressure, Annie understood the importance of her role. The district attorney, a warm-hearted woman named Mrs. Rodriguez, had spent several weeks preparing Annie for this day. Through their meetings, she had helped Annie understand that her testimony would be different from what she had seen on TV shows. She wouldn't have to face Rita directly in the large courtroom. Instead, she would speak in the judge's chambers, a cozy room that reminded her of her school principal's office. The waiting area outside the judge's chambers buzzed with quiet activity. Detective Chen was there, offering Annie an encouraging smile and a small bag of her favorite cherry-flavored candies. Dr. Rivera, their family therapist, sat nearby, ready to provide support if needed. The corridor walls were decorated with children's artwork, a detail Annie later learned was specifically arranged to help young witnesses feel more at ease. As Annie waited with her father, she noticed other families arriving at the courthouse. Some had children close to her age, and she soon learned they were families from other cases linked to Rita. There was something both comforting and sad about seeing these other children, knowing she wasn't alone, but wishing none of them had to be there in the first place. When it was Annie's turn to speak, Judge Wilson, a grandmotherly figure with silver hair and gentle eyes, made her feel immediately at ease. The judge explained that Annie's words would be recorded and shared in the main courtroom later, so she could speak freely without worry. As Annie began recounting her story, her voice grew stronger with each detail she remembered. Meanwhile, in the main courtroom, Annie's father listened as prosecutors presented their case. The evidence was overwhelming, not just from their case, but from Rita's pattern of behavior across multiple states. Financial records revealed life insurance policies taken out on previous partners, and forensic analysts had traced purchases of various substances back to her under different aliases. During lunch breaks, Annie and her father would sit in a small garden behind the courthouse, sharing sandwiches packed by Mrs. Thompson. These moments became their refuge, where they could momentarily forget about the trial and just be father and daughter. Annie would tell him about the courthouse therapy dog she had befriended, a gentle golden retriever named Scout who sat with children during their testimonies. The trial stretched over several weeks, revealing more disturbing details about Rita's past. However, amidst the darkness of the revelations, points of light emerged. Other victims' families connected with one another, forming a support network that extended beyond the courthouse walls. Annie's father found solace in speaking with other parents who understood his experience, while Annie formed friendships with some of the children who shared similar stories. One particularly meaningful moment came when Annie's school principal asked if she would help develop a safety awareness program for younger students. With guidance from Detective Chen and Dr. Rivera, Annie helped create age-appropriate lessons about trusting one's instincts and knowing when to seek help from trusted adults. Her father watched with pride as she turned her traumatic experience into something that could help others. As the trial progressed, Annie and her father continued their healing journey. They started a new tradition of safety check-ins every evening, where they could openly discuss any concerns or worries they had. These conversations often evolved into sharing happy memories of Annie's mother, something they had struggled to do since her passing. It felt like they were finally learning to balance remembering the past while building a new future. The community's support never wavered. Annie's classmates had organized a Brave Hearts Club that met during lunch breaks, where children could talk about their fears and victories in a safe space. Ms. Patel incorporated age-appropriate discussions about personal safety into her lessons, using Annie's experience as an inspiration while protecting her privacy. 3 months into the trial, Mrs. Rodriguez called with news that would change everything. Additional evidence had emerged linking Rita to similar cases in other states, and she had agreed to a plea deal that would ensure she spent a significant portion of her life in prison. The deal meant Annie wouldn't need to testify further, and other families would be spared the stress of a prolonged trial. The evening after hearing the news, Annie and her father sat on their back porch swing, sharing a pot of hot chocolate, their new favorite evening drink. "Dad," Annie said thoughtfully, "do you think Mom would be proud of us?" Her father wrapped his arm around her shoulders, looking up at the stars they both believed held her mother's spirit. "She's always been proud of you, sweetheart," he replied, his voice soft but certain. "And she's been watching over us this whole time." As part 3 drew to a close, the father-daughter duo began making plans for their future. They decided to renovate their home, starting with the kitchen where so much had happened. The space that had once held dark memories would be transformed into a bright, open area where they could cook together and create new, joyful moments. The old tea cabinet was replaced with a display of Annie's growing collection of cooking medals. She had discovered a passion for baking during their therapy sessions. The chapter ended with Annie and her father attending a community celebration organized by their neighbors. The event honored not just Annie's bravery, but the resilience of all the families affected by Rita's actions. As lanterns were released into the evening sky, each carrying messages of hope and healing, Annie realized that sometimes the hardest chapters in life could lead to the most beautiful beginnings. 6 months after Rita's plea deal, spring had returned to the neighborhood, bringing with it new beginnings and unexpected opportunities. The local newspaper's headline read, "Young Hero's Story Inspires Nationwide Child Safety Program," featuring a photo of Annie speaking to a group of elementary school students. Her story had traveled far beyond their small community, touching lives in ways no one could have predicted. The morning light streamed through the newly installed kitchen windows, casting warm patterns on the freshly painted yellow walls. Annie stood at the counter, carefully measuring ingredients for her signature Brave Heart cookies, a recipe she had perfected during her therapy baking sessions. These weren't ordinary cookies. Each batch was destined for the welcome packages given to children arriving at the local crisis center. Detective Chen had become a regular visitor to their home, though now it was more about friendship than official business. She had helped establish a network connecting law enforcement with school counselors, creating a more robust safety net for vulnerable families. Over Sunday brunches, she would share stories about how Annie's case had changed the way police departments approached similar situations, particularly in cases involving children's testimonies. Annie's father had undergone his own transformation. The guilt that once weighed heavily on his shoulders had gradually given way to a determined purpose. He had started a support group for single parents, meeting twice monthly in the community center. The group focused not just on healing from betrayal, but on building stronger, safer families through open communication and awareness. One particularly meaningful project emerged from their experience, the Trust Your Instincts program. Annie and her father worked together with child psychologists to develop age-appropriate materials teaching children about personal safety. The program was special because it emphasized empowerment rather than fear, helping children understand the difference between anxiety and genuine intuition. The renovation of their home had become a symbol of their healing journey. Each room was thoughtfully transformed, not to erase the past, but to create spaces that reflected their growth and strength. The kitchen, once a source of anxiety, had become the heart of their home again. The old tea cabinet was replaced with open shelving displaying Annie's growing collection of cooking awards and family photos, including a prominent one of her mother. Annie's school life had taken on new dimensions. Her Brave Hearts Club had expanded to other schools in the district, creating safe spaces where children could discuss their feelings and learn about personal safety. Ms. Patel had helped develop a curriculum that incorporated emotional intelligence and safety awareness into regular lessons, using age-appropriate stories and activities. One sunny afternoon, as Annie and her father worked in their new garden, another therapy-inspired project, they received unexpected news. A children's book publisher had reached out, interested in turning Annie's story into a series of educational books for young readers. The books would focus on different aspects of personal safety, using Annie's experience as a framework for teaching important lessons about trusting one's instincts. The impact of Annie's story continued to ripple outward. Social workers began using modified versions of her experience in their training programs, helping professionals better understand how children perceive and process dangerous situations. Dr. Rivera had even presented their case at a national conference, highlighting the importance of believing children when they report concerning behavior. Annie's father found himself becoming an advocate for child safety in his own right. His construction company had implemented new policies for background checks and safety training, particularly for workers who might interact with clients' families. His colleagues, many of them parents themselves, had embraced these changes, creating a more vigilant and supportive work environment. The community's annual Safety Awareness Fair, now named Annie's Day, had become a cherished tradition. Families gathered to learn about personal safety through interactive activities, workshops, and demonstrations. Annie's cookie decorating station was always the most popular, not just for the delicious treats, but for the opportunity to talk with the brave girl who had trusted her instincts and saved her father's life. One evening, as Annie and her father sat in their garden swing, they reflected on how much had changed. The butterfly garden they had planted in memory of Annie's mother was in full bloom, attracting beautiful monarchs that Annie liked to think were carrying messages from heaven. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't made that call?" Annie asked softly. Her father pulled her close, watching the butterflies dance among the flowers. "I'm thankful every day that you were brave enough to trust yourself," he replied. "But what makes me even prouder is how you've helped other children find their brave hearts too." The changes in their lives had extended beyond the visible transformations of their home and community. Annie had discovered a strength she never knew she possessed, while her father had learned valuable lessons about trust, vigilance, and the importance of listening to children. Together, they had turned a potentially tragic story into one of hope, healing, and positive change. As Part 4 drew to a close, Annie and her father prepared for another community speaking engagement. The audience would be filled with families, educators, and law enforcement officers eager to learn from their experience. But more importantly, there would be children in attendance, children who needed to know that their voices mattered, that their instincts were worth trusting, and that even the smallest among them could be heroes in their own right. The story of the little girl who stopped her father from drinking tea had become more than just a cautionary tale. It had evolved into a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of a child's intuition, and a reminder that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is speak up when something doesn't feel right. As Annie would often say during her presentations, "Your inner voice is your superpower, all you have to do is trust it." 1 year had passed since the trial, and autumn leaves once again carpeted the neighborhood streets. Annie, now 8 years old, stood before a packed auditorium at the State Children's Safety Conference, her voice steady as she shared her story with hundreds of educators, law enforcement officers, and child safety advocates. The little girl who had once whispered into a phone from a bathroom had found her voice, and that voice was changing lives. The conference marked a significant milestone in what had become known as the Trust Your Instincts movement. School districts across the country had begun implementing programs based on Annie's experience, teaching children about personal safety through age-appropriate stories and activities. The movement had gained attention from child psychologists and education experts who praised its positive, empowering approach to safety awareness. Back at home, Annie and her father had settled into new routines that reflected their growth and healing. Their morning ritual now included tending to their Garden of Trust, a community project they had started in the local park. Each plant represented a child who had come forward with their own story after hearing Annie's experience. The garden had grown from a small patch to a flourishing space where families could reflect, heal, and find strength in their shared experiences. Annie's father had undergone his own remarkable transformation. The guilt that once consumed him had been channeled into purposeful action. He had partnered with Detective Chen to create a workshop series for single parents, focusing on building safe, nurturing environments for their children. The workshops addressed everything from vetting new relationships to recognizing warning signs that might otherwise go unnoticed. The Brave Heart Cookies initiative had expanded beyond their local crisis center. Annie's recipe, along with her story, was now included in comfort packages sent to children's advocacy centers nationwide. Each package contained not just the recipe, but a personal note from Annie encouraging other children to trust their inner voice. The simple act of baking had become a form of therapy for many young survivors, helping them rebuild their sense of security and control. One particularly touching development came through the creation of the Guardian Angel Network, inspired by Annie's special connection to her late mother's memory. The network paired children who had lost a parent with mentors who could provide guidance and support during difficult times. Annie's father often remarked how this program helped fill a vital gap in the support system for grieving families. The impact of their story reached unexpected places. Police academies had begun incorporating Annie's case into their training programs, using it to illustrate the importance of taking children's reports seriously. Detective Chen, who had become like family to Annie and her father, often shared how the case had changed the way law enforcement approached similar situations. Annie's school life had blossomed in new ways. The Brave Hearts Club had evolved into a nationwide network of student-led safety awareness groups. Through video conferences, children from different states shared their experiences and ideas for making their communities safer. Annie's original club members had become mentors to younger students, creating a sustainable cycle of peer support and education. Dr. Rivera, their family therapist, had documented their healing journey for a groundbreaking study on family resilience after trauma. The study highlighted how open communication, community support, and purposeful action could help families not just survive betrayal, but emerge stronger. Annie and her father's story became a beacon of hope for others navigating similar challenges. One rainy afternoon, as Annie and her father sorted through letters from children who had been helped by their program, they found a particularly moving message. A 10-year-old girl had recognized similar behavior patterns in her home situation and, remembering Annie's story, had the courage to tell her teacher. The situation was addressed before any harm could occur, and another family was saved from potential tragedy. The success of their safety awareness program had caught the attention of child advocacy organizations nationwide. Annie and her father were invited to consult on the development of new safety curriculum materials that would be distributed to schools across the country. Their input ensured that the materials remained child-centered and empowering rather than fear-based. Their home had become a hub for positive change. The kitchen, once a place of hidden dangers, now hosted weekly baking sessions where children could learn about safety while decorating cookies and sharing their stories. The walls were covered with artwork and letters from children who had found their own courage through Annie's example. As Annie's influence grew, so did her understanding of the broader impact of her actions. During a quiet moment in their garden, she asked her father, "Do you think we're helping enough people?" Her father smiled, remembering how that same caring heart had saved his life. "Sweetheart," he replied, every single person who finds their voice because of your story is a victory. And those voices will help others find their courage too. The local police department had created a special unit dedicated to investigating cases involving children, with protocols influenced by Annie's case. Detective Chen led the unit, ensuring that every child who came forward was treated with the same care and respect that had helped Annie through her ordeal. The unit's success rate in preventing and addressing domestic safety issues had become a model for other departments. As Part 5 drew to a close, Annie stood at her bedroom window, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. Her wall now displayed a collection of butterfly drawings sent by children from all over the country, each one representing a child who had found the courage to speak up. Next to her bed stood a framed photo of her mother, and Annie liked to think that somewhere, her mom was proud of how her family had turned their pain into purpose. The story of the little girl who stopped her father from drinking tea had transcended its origins to become a movement of hope and empowerment. It proved that even the smallest voice, when raised in truth, could create ripples of change that touched countless lives. As Annie prepared for bed, she thought about all the children who would sleep safer tonight because they had learned to trust their instincts, and she knew that their journey was far from over. 18 months after that fateful day in the kitchen, Annie's story had crossed international borders. A documentary filmmaker had approached them about sharing their journey with a global audience. At first, Annie and her father were hesitant. They had always focused on helping others rather than gaining recognition. But after careful consideration, they realized this could be an opportunity to reach even more families in need. The filming process brought unexpected healing moments. As they revisited the places that had shaped their story, the kitchen where it all began, the courthouse where justice was served, and the community center where countless families had found support, they discovered new layers of strength within themselves. The documentary crew captured not just their story, but the ripple effect it had created in communities far and wide. Annie's father had received an invitation to speak at an international conference on family safety in London. As they prepared for their first overseas trip together, Annie couldn't help but think about how her mother had always dreamed of taking her to see Big Ben. The journey would be bittersweet, but it represented how far they had come from those dark days of uncertainty and fear. The Trust Your Instincts program had evolved in ways they never imagined. Child psychology experts had conducted studies showing that children who participated in the program displayed increased confidence in recognizing and reporting potentially dangerous situations. Schools reported a significant rise in students coming forward with concerns, not just about their own safety, but about friends and classmates who might need help. One particularly moving development came through their partnership with a children's hospital. The pediatric ward had implemented a modified version of Annie's program, helping young patients feel more comfortable communicating with medical staff about their needs and concerns. The hospital's Brave Heart Wing featured walls decorated with butterfly artwork, inspired by Annie's symbol of hope and transformation. Detective Chen had been promoted to head of a new family safety division, implementing protocols that had grown from Annie's case. She made sure every officer received specialized training in handling cases involving children, and her department had become a model for others across the country. The changes she implemented had led to a marked increase in successful interventions in potentially dangerous family situations. Annie's school life had taken an unexpected turn when she was invited to help develop a peer counseling program. Working with the school counselor, she helped create a safe space where students could talk about their worries and fears without judgment. The program was so successful that neighboring schools began requesting guidance on implementing similar initiatives. The Brave Heart cookies had become more than just a therapy tool, they were now a symbol of hope and healing. A local bakery had partnered with them to sell the cookies, with proceeds supporting families in crisis. Each cookie came with a card sharing a condensed version of Annie's story and contact information for safety resources. The simple act of sharing cookies had opened countless conversations about family safety and children's empowerment. During a routine check-in with Rita's case, they received news that would test their resilience once again. Rita had been helping authorities identify other potential predators, leading to several arrests and preventive interventions. While this development was positive, it brought back difficult memories and emotions for both Annie and her father. Dr. Rivera helped them process these feelings, reminding them that their pain had been transformed into protection for others. The Guardian Angel Network had expanded to include an online platform where children could safely connect with mentors and peers who understood their experiences. The platform, carefully monitored by child safety experts, provided resources, support groups, and educational materials. Annie's father often marveled at how technology could be used to create such meaningful connections while maintaining strict safety protocols. Their home had become something of a landmark in the community. The garden, now in full bloom year-round thanks to a greenhouse addition, served as a peaceful retreat for families in need of healing. Weekly support group meetings in their renovated living room had helped countless parents and children find their way forward after difficult experiences. One evening, as Annie worked on her homework, an essay about everyday heroes, she asked her father a question that caught him off guard. "Dad, do you think we'll ever stop being scared?" He sat beside her, choosing his words carefully. "Being brave doesn't mean never being scared," he explained. "It means doing what's right even when we are scared. And that's what you taught me." The impact of their story had reached corporate boardrooms, leading to changes in workplace safety policies and background check procedures. Companies began implementing more thorough screening processes for employees who might have contact with clients' families. Annie's father's construction company had become a leader in this movement, showing other businesses how to prioritize family safety without compromising efficiency. Their advocacy work had attracted attention from lawmakers. Annie and her father found themselves testifying before state legislators, supporting bills that would strengthen protection for vulnerable families. Their testimony, particularly Annie's clear and compelling account of her experience, helped push through important changes in family court procedures and safety protocols. As Part 6 drew to a close, Annie stood before a mirror in their newly remodeled hallway, adjusting her uniform for an important presentation at a neighboring school. The reflection showed more than just a little girl who had saved her father's life, it showed a young advocate who had helped countless others find their voice. Next to her stood her father, his eyes filled with pride and gratitude for the daughter who had not only protected him but had helped create a legacy of safety and hope for families everywhere. The butterfly garden outside their window had grown into a sanctuary, its flowers attracting not just butterflies but families seeking moments of peace and reflection. Each new bloom seemed to whisper the message that had become their mantra: trust your instincts, find your voice, and never underestimate the power of a child's courage to change the world. The premiere of the documentary, Trust Your Heart, Annie's Story, marked a turning point in their journey. The local theater was packed with familiar faces: Detective Chen, Dr. Rivera, Mrs. Thompson, Ms. Patel, and countless others who had been part of their story. As the lights dimmed and Annie's voice filled the theater, narrating her experience, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. The documentary had captured something special, not just the events that had unfolded that crucial day, but the ripple effect of one child's courage. International news outlets picked up the story, and soon Annie and her father found themselves fielding interview requests from around the world. They carefully chose which opportunities to accept, always focusing on those that would help spread their message of empowerment and safety. Their trip to London for the International Family Safety Conference had opened new doors. Representatives from child safety organizations across Europe and Asia approached them about adapting the Trust Your Instincts program for different cultures and contexts. Annie was fascinated by how children from different countries related to her story in their own unique ways. Back home, the documentary's impact continued to grow. Schools began using edited versions in their safety curriculum, and police academies incorporated it into their training programs. The film's powerful message about believing children. Implementing more thorough screening processes for employees who might have contact with clients' families. Annie's father's construction company had become a leader in this movement, showing other businesses how to prioritize family safety without compromising efficiency. Their advocacy work had attracted attention from lawmakers. Annie and her father found themselves testifying before state legislators, supporting bills that would strengthen protection for vulnerable families. Their testimony, particularly Annie's clear and compelling account of her experience, helped push through important changes in family court procedures and safety protocols. As Part 6 drew to a close, Annie stood before a mirror in their newly remodeled hallway, adjusting her uniform for an important presentation at a neighboring school. The reflection showed more than just a little girl who had saved her father's life, it showed a young advocate who had helped countless others find their voice. Next to her stood her father, his eyes filled with pride and gratitude for the daughter who had not only protected him but had helped create a legacy of safety and hope for families everywhere. The butterfly garden outside their window had grown into a sanctuary, its flowers attracting not just butterflies but families seeking moments of peace and reflection. Each new bloom seemed to whisper the message that had become their mantra: trust your instincts, find your voice, and never underestimate the power of a child's courage to change the world. The premiere of the documentary, Trust Your Heart, Annie's Story, marked a turning point in their journey. The local theater was packed with familiar faces: Detective Chen, Dr. Rivera, Mrs. Thompson, Ms. Patel, and countless others who had been part of their story. As the lights dimmed and Annie's voice filled the theater, narrating her experience, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. The documentary had captured something special, not just the events that had unfolded that crucial day, but the ripple effect of one child's courage. International news outlets picked up the story, and soon Annie and her father found themselves fielding interview requests from around the world. They carefully chose which opportunities to accept, always focusing on those that would help spread their message of empowerment and safety. Their trip to London for the International Family Safety Conference had opened new doors. Representatives from child safety organizations across Europe and Asia approached them about adapting the Trust Your Instincts program for different cultures and contexts. Annie was fascinated by how children from different countries related to her story in their own unique ways. Back home, the documentary's impact continued to grow. Schools began using edited versions in their safety curriculum, and police academies incorporated it into their training programs. The film's powerful message about believing children and taking their concerns seriously had struck a chord with professionals across various fields. One particularly moving development came when a group of child psychologists in Australia created a therapeutic protocol based on Annie's journey. The butterfly method, as they called it, helped children process trauma through art, storytelling, and baking, all elements that had helped Annie heal. The method was showing promising results, especially with children who struggled to express their feelings through traditional therapy. Annie's father had discovered a new purpose in life. His support group for single parents had grown into a nationwide network, with chapters in every major city. He developed a comprehensive screening guide for parents beginning new relationships, incorporating lessons learned from their experience and input from law enforcement professionals. The Brave Heart Cookies initiative had taken an unexpected turn when a major cookie company approached them about a partnership. After careful consideration, they agreed to license the recipe and story, with all proceeds going to a foundation they had established to support children in crisis. Each cookie package included safety tips and resources, turning a simple snack into a tool for awareness. During a routine visit to their butterfly garden, Annie made a discovery that touched her deeply. A young girl had left a note tied to a flower stem: "Your story helped me save my little brother." The note detailed how the girl had recognized warning signs in their babysitter's behavior and knew to tell her parents. These moments reminded Annie and her father why they continued sharing their story, even when it meant revisiting painful memories. The documentary's success had led to an unexpected collaboration with a leading children's television network. They were developing an animated series based on the Trust Your Instincts program, featuring a diverse group of young characters learning to recognize and respond to various safety concerns. Annie served as a consultant, ensuring the show remained true to its empowering message while being appropriate for young viewers. Their work had begun to influence policy at the highest levels. Government agencies sought their input on child safety legislation, and international organizations invited them to consult on global child protection initiatives. Annie's father often marveled at how his daughter's brave action had sparked such far-reaching change. The Guardian Angel Network had evolved into a sophisticated support system, now featuring a mobile app that connected children with verified mentors and resources. The app included safety features designed by tech experts who had been moved by Annie's story, ensuring that children could seek help securely and confidentially. One afternoon, while sorting through mail from around the world, Annie found a letter that particularly touched her heart. It was from a grandmother in Japan who had watched the documentary with her grandchildren. She wrote about how the story had opened up important conversations in their family and helped her grandson speak up about a situation at school that had been troubling him. The impact on their local community remained as strong as ever. Their home had become known as the House of Hope, with the garden serving as a peaceful gathering place for families. Local artists had painted a beautiful mural on the community center wall, depicting butterflies emerging from teacups, a powerful symbol of transformation and hope. Dr. Rivera had developed a groundbreaking family therapy program based on their experience, focusing on rebuilding trust and communication after trauma. The program was being implemented in family counseling centers nationwide, helping countless families heal from similar experiences. As Annie prepared for her 9th birthday, she reflected on how much had changed in the past 2 years. The small bathroom where she had made that crucial 911 call had been transformed into a cheerful space decorated with artwork from children around the world. Each piece told a story of courage, hope, and the power of trusting one's instincts. Their journey had taken them far beyond their initial goal of creating a safer community. They had built a movement that empowered children, supported families, and changed how society viewed the importance of believing children's voices. The documentary had simply been a vehicle to spread this message further, touching lives they never thought they could reach. As Part 7 drew to a close, Annie and her father sat in their favorite spot in the garden, surrounded by butterflies and the sweet scent of hope. A stack of letters from around the world sat between them, each one a testament to the power of a child's courage to create lasting change. They had learned that sometimes the smallest voices could spark the biggest movements, and that healing wasn't just about moving past trauma, it was about transforming it into something that could help others find their way to safety and peace. 2 years had passed since that fateful day in the kitchen, and the world had changed in ways Annie and her father could never have imagined. Their story, which began with a whispered phone call from a small bathroom, had blossomed into a global movement that continued to save lives and transform communities. The success of the documentary had led to an unexpected honor. Annie was invited to address the United Nations Children's Summit. Standing before delegates from around the world, the 9-year-old who had once been afraid to speak up now commanded attention with quiet confidence. Her message was simple but powerful: every child's voice matters, and sometimes the smallest whisper can create the loudest change. The Trust Your Instincts program had been translated into 20 different languages, adapted for various cultures while maintaining its core message. In Japan, children learned about safety through origami butterflies. In Brazil, the program incorporated dance and movement. In India, storytelling circles helped children understand the importance of speaking up. Each culture added its own unique elements while preserving the essential truth of Annie's experience. Their home had become a living testament to the power of transformation. The kitchen, once a place of hidden dangers, was now a bustling center of healing and hope. Every Saturday, families gathered there for what they called trust and taste sessions, combining cooking therapy with safety education. The old tea cabinet had been replaced with a wall of courage, featuring stories and artwork from children around the world who had found their voice through their program. Detective Chen's Family Safety Division had become a model for law enforcement agencies globally. She had developed a comprehensive training program that helped officers recognize subtle signs of danger in family situations. The protocols she established, inspired by Annie's case, had been adopted by police departments across 5 continents, leading to countless successful interventions. The Brave Heart cookies had evolved into more than just a symbol, they had become a movement of their own. The recipe was now featured in a cookbook that combined safety education with baking therapy. Professional bakers worldwide participated in an annual Brave Heart Bake-Off, raising funds for child safety organizations while spreading awareness about the importance of trusting one's instincts. Annie's father had published a book titled Learning to Listen, A Father's Journey, which became a powerful resource for parents navigating the challenges of single parenthood and blended families. The book combined practical safety advice with emotional insights, helping parents understand the importance of maintaining open communication with their children. The Butterfly Garden had grown into a full-fledged healing center, with professional counselors offering support to families in crisis. The space included a children's art therapy studio, meditation areas, and a special memorial section where families could honor loved ones lost to domestic violence. The garden's butterfly population had grown so large that local scientists studied it as a phenomenon of nature responding to human healing. One of the most significant developments came through their partnership with international technology companies. The Guardian Angel app had evolved into a sophisticated safety network, using artificial intelligence to help identify patterns of concerning behavior while connecting users with local resources and support services. The app had already helped prevent numerous potentially dangerous situations, proving that technology could be a powerful tool for protection when properly designed. Annie's school had become a pioneer in child safety education, with other institutions worldwide looking to them for guidance. The Brave Hearts Club model had been implemented in schools across 6 continents, creating a global network of young advocates for safety and empowerment. Regular video conferences connected these young leaders, allowing them to share ideas and support one another across cultural and linguistic boundaries. The documentary had sparked a series of international youth safety summits, where young people from different countries gathered to discuss safety concerns and develop solutions. Annie's story had become a catalyst for these conversations, helping children understand that their experiences and insights were valuable contributions to the global dialogue on safety. Dr. Rivera's research on their case had led to groundbreaking developments in trauma therapy. The butterfly method of healing, which combined traditional therapy with creative expression and community support, had been adopted by mental health professionals worldwide. The method's success rates in helping families recover from trauma had drawn attention from leading psychological institutions. As they approached the 2nd anniversary of that life-changing day, Annie and her father received news that took their breath away. Their story had been credited with helping prevent similar situations in over 10,000 families worldwide. The data had been collected through their various programs and partnerships, providing concrete evidence that one child's courage could indeed change the world. The House of Hope, as their home had come to be known, now hosted international visitors seeking to learn from their experience. The walls were covered with messages in dozens of languages, each expressing gratitude for the hope and healing their story had inspired. The kitchen table where Rita had once prepared her dangerous brew had been replaced with a beautiful round table, symbolizing the endless circle of support and healing that their work had created. Annie's mother's presence remained strong in their journey. The butterfly garden included a special section dedicated to her memory, with flowers she had loved and a small plaque bearing her favorite saying, "Trust the voice in your heart." Annie often felt her mother's guidance in their work, especially when helping other children who had lost parents to violence. As Part 8 drew to a close, Annie and her father sat in their garden on the evening of another successful international safety conference. The sky was painted in brilliant sunset colors, and butterflies danced among the flowers. A group of visiting children from different countries played nearby, their laughter a testament to the healing power of community and understanding. "Dad," Annie said, watching the butterflies, "remember when I asked you if we were helping enough people?" Her father smiled, remembering that conversation from what seemed like a lifetime ago. Yes, sweetheart. Annie looked at the children playing, then at the wall of letters and artwork from around the world, and finally at the butterfly garden where so many had found healing. I think we found our answer. The story that began with a little girl's intuition and courage had grown into a global movement of hope and transformation. While their work would never be truly finished, there would always be more families to help, more children to empower, more voices to amplify. They had created something beautiful from their pain. They had shown the world that even in the darkest moments, trust, love, and courage could light the way forward, one brave heart at a time.